Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Friday. Yay, we made it to Friday, September 20th, 2024. Time for another show. Lots to catch up on. Don't know which direction to go just yet. Friday can be the big catch-up show day with all of the decks cleared and all of the stories that have been waiting in the wings, getting their chance in the limelight. Or sometimes it turns into, well, sometimes it starts out like that. That's the intention, and then you get into a story and you just stay with it because there's nobody to remind you how much time is left and or to interrupt you with any other story. We've done both directions in the past. Not sure which direction this one's going to go. I think, the day warrants a roundup of all the latest news and a couple other stories that have been waiting in the wings because there's just so much. But on the other hand, have you seen the news? Because if you have seen the news, you would know that, for a morning show, I guess, maybe, people are still eating breakfast, whatever. It's not the greatest roundup of news. It's not bad news for anybody we care about. All the worst people in the world, in fact, are getting all the bad news. It's just that so much of the news is about perverts. And, you could easily say, it got to the point, certainly, where people last night on social media are like, please send me some bleach. I'm poking my eyes out. No more. I don't want to know anything else about anybody else. We didn't spend any time, and I don't intend to spend any time, on the fact that Sean Combs, Puff Diddy, Sean Puffy Combs, or however, I don't know what he goes by anymore, but he's been through about 5 iterations of his nickname. He was arrested recently, and I just sort of, okay. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. But as it turns out, I know nothing about it. But I think it was a sex trafficking arrest. And they found something incredible. They raided his home. And I don't know. I cannot verify any of the details because I just couldn't bring myself to be interested enough to look at the articles. I don't care if he's under arrest. It doesn't make any difference to me. But culturally speaking, I suppose we should be up on such things. And I guess they raided his house. And all I've seen is the people talking about it on social media. So I don't know if they're kidding. I don't know if it's an exaggeration. I don't know if it's backed up in the articles. You'll have to tell me. But let's see. It sounds like he's been teaming up with James O'Keefe, I guess, because they apparently seized they had a count, 700 and I don't know what, 39. I don't know what the number actually was. It was 700 something dildos. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? What are you having for breakfast? Thinking twice about those sausage links, are you? Well, they're high in fat, and you shouldn't be eating those anyway. Plus, patty is perhaps, some say the superior presentation of the sausage. Anyway, but some ungodly, I don't know what's a godly number of dildos? Probably not any. I don't know. Or maybe, who knows? What God are you talking about, I guess? But 700 and something, and I don't really know what that's about. I need to have one new one every day for 5 years. What's this about? I have no idea. And then apparently also seized in this raid 1,000 bottles of baby oil, which again, it's widely available. I don't know why you have to stockpile that. Maybe he was filling, inflatable pools and having oil wrestling matches or something like that. But I feel like you could buy it in larger format if that was necessary, if you're a very rich person. So I don't know what to tell you, but apparently some very serious charges and some very weird times in the evidence room, I guess, in whatever precinct he was booked in. And that's just the non-political one. So yesterday was an explosion of weird sex stories in politics. I don't even know if I'm going to get to them all, but there's a roundup on the front page of Daily Kos which might help with things. It's an unsigned Daily Kos staff piece here, the recap. One is about Trump and Harris, which is not a sex scandal at all, I hope. I don't think so. But then referring to what I guess I thought was going to be the lead pervert story of the day, if there was going to be one. Mark Robinson, the gubernatorial candidate for the Republican Party in North Carolina, already, of course, in heaps of, his name's been called a lot. I was going to say he's in heaps of trouble, but he really isn't, and that was part of the scandal, was all the things that he had done and said and that had been proven about him or alleged about him, and it still didn't knock him out of the race. I mean, he was the guy who was saying, well, what should we do about our political opponents? Well, some folks just need to be killed. Remember that one? Some folks just need killing, I think he said. And then there were allegations that he was remembered by people who were porn shop workers back in the day when, back in the days when you had to go into a porn shop, I guess, in order to get porn, as opposed to downloading it over the internet or something. And that he was a frequent customer. And I don't know. It was it too failed to knock him out of the race. And I guess now it comes revelations for one thing, that he was on online forums insisting that he was a Nazi, a black Nazi. And let's see, now among the allegations in the first round of stories, and again, these two I didn't dive too far into, but we should find out exactly what that one is about. There were allegations that he also was confessing to particular types of pornography that he enjoyed most, and it was among them were the sorts of sorts of porn that I guess if you had to design one that would be worst right now in this current political atmosphere for a Republican candidate, it would be any one of the various minority groups that are oppressed by Republicans and singled out for persecution, transgender, LGBTQ of any kind, and who knows what else. And apparently that was his, it was his biggest thrill, because, as you know, every Republican accusation is a confession. And a lot of these guys, it turns out, I think they sort of get into politics, if not to achieve the power that would be necessary to protect themselves from any criminal liability arising out of this. I think it's also part of their weird perversion, and they get a weird thrill out of being able to do this stuff while everybody else is condemning it, and even while they condemn it. And imagine what would happen if people found out. But imagine the thrill of having people find out and being able to bulldoze right past it anyway and be governor of the state. And, they should spend their time in therapy instead, I would say. Let's see, the coverage, it's just a roundup that I was looking at. So let's take a look at the Daily Kos write-up. Walter Einenkel wrote up the Mark Robinson story under the headline, quote, "Yeah, I'm a perv." Not Walter, but Mark saying that about himself. GOP nominee for governor has sordid online history. Well, it's true. A bombshell report about North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, the state's Republican gubernatorial nominee, was published on Thursday by CNN. Robinson reportedly posted numerous disturbing statements on the message board of pornographic website, and this is another new one for me. I don't know whether I love to learn new things, but not these new things. I guess I'm pleased that there's, still things that I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it shouldn't surprise me. I'm at that age where now I delight in looking at celebrity news and saying, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Never heard of that one. Never heard of this one. Not only have I never heard of this website, but imagine, I'm just kind of curious about this. This is a porn website large enough to have a message board in which there's significant traffic. So I don't know if that's easy to do or not. Well, anyway, between the years of 2008 and 2012, Mark Robinson spent his time discussing the finer points of the porn he enjoyed most on the website Nude Africa. That is a dumb name. And I don't know if it bears any relation to the type of content. I don't want to know. It doesn't have to. It can be a dumb thing anyway, but I don't know. I just have found the name absurd all by itself. But, and imagine, I don't know, stumbling upon Nude Africa and saying, this is it. This is where really I should be spending my time. But, okay. Well, I don't know whether it had anything to do with the content or the clientele, but it then would seem, I think, I don't know, less likely that a good idea would be, well, here's a group of porn enjoyers. We've gotten together in a self-interest group to talk about our favorite interests here on Nude Africa. I'm going to tell everybody I'm a black Nazi. I think that would be unpopular there, but, he was trying to be a provocateur maybe. I'm a black Nazi, Robinson reportedly wrote in October of 2010. That was before it was cool to be a Nazi, I guess. He followed this up with another post the same month saying, slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. That's just like some people need killing, of course. I wish they would bring slavery, back. I would certainly buy a few. Now, I assume he's aware of the history just generally of slavery in this country. The idea, it's very interesting. I don't know what else to say about it. There's other words you could use for it, but, not really helpful in the discussion of slavery. But I don't know why he thought he wouldn't be the one enslaved in all of this. But I guess he thought maybe his Nazi status would help him. The man whom Donald Trump called, and, leave it to Donald Trump to say something stupid like this, even if this guy had been a fine, upstanding citizen in every respect, to call him, quote, better than Martin Luther King, unquote, seems insensitive, to say the least. And, of course, now just ridiculous. So the man whom Donald Trump called better than Martin Luther King also had some thoughts for the porn forums about the civil rights leader himself, calling King a, quote, commie bastard, quote, worse than a maggot, a phony and a huckster. Which, I can understand. Martin Luther King usually, I would guess, probably on the mind of most people at Nude Africa every afternoon. I have no idea. Don't mix your porn and your politics and your civil rights and your history, but I would recommend keeping them separate. After another forum user accused Robinson of being in the Ku Klux Klan, unlikely. Robinson responded, I'm not in the KKK. They don't let blacks join. If I was in the KKK, I would have called him Martin Lucifer. Oh, I see. And a very dated, but still widely, I don't know what to say. Anyway, it's a name that you may have heard used by racists, and it's not great, and I don't really feel like it. Anyway, the point is he's on a lot of porn sites, one of which is Nude Africa, and that's where he spent his time. Also, giving his views that he's a black Nazi and he should be able to allow to own slaves. Okay, CNN reports that he regularly used slurs to describe gay people, Jews, and Muslims. And that's another thing, really. Does it have to come to religion? Can't you just enjoy Nude Africa without bringing that up? Robinson also reportedly wrote, I like watching, look at this, and using another outdated term that is also insulting to transgender folks, and but that apparently I like watching what would now I guess be called transgender porn. Anyway, he goes on to say that's effing hot, and it takes the man out while leaving the man in. I don't even know what that means, and yeah, I'm a perv too. Which really, I mean, that too, isn't that a given? over at Nude Africa, or maybe it was a very genteel community and he was an outlier. I have no idea. Robinson has been publicly cruel in statements about transgender people, telling former Trump advisor Sebastian Gorka on a podcast in 2023, the transgender movement in this country, if there's a movement in this country that is demonic and it's full of the spirit of the Antichrist, it's the transgender movement. And that could be true. He just thinks it's also very hot. Okay. The extensive CNN report provides detailed visual evidence, oh my, what kind, that definitely connects Robinson's Nude Africa profile to accounts on sites like YouTube, Facebook, and the site formerly known as Twitter, and Pinterest. Authors Andrew Kaczynski, and M. Steck also write that they're reporting only a small portion of Robinson's comments on the website, given their graphic nature. Those got through, though. Hints about the CNN piece leaked out early Thursday, followed by additional reports that Republicans were calling on Robinson to withdraw his candidacy. Pretty late in the game, right? Thursday evening, in fact, was the deadline to withdraw from the state's gubernatorial race. The Carolina Journal reported that Donald Trump's campaign has barred Robinson from showing up at events. So he's found out about it and he's mad, too. That's interesting. Karen Brinson Bell, who heads North Carolina's elections board, told the Washington Post that even if Robinson does withdraw before the deadline on Thursday night, and he did not, by the way, his name would still likely appear on absentee, military, and overseas ballots, and nude ballots, if there is such a thing. To remove a name from the ballot at this time would be an insurmountable hurdle, she said. They're surmounting it, and where? Didn't we just find out that they had ordered the ballots revised? Was it wasn't in North Carolina? Or maybe South Carolina? We were just reading about RFK suing his way off the ballot and having one state Supreme Court said, to hell with the whole deadline thing. We don't care. Well, anyway, as it turns out, the news of the night was, Robinson said he wouldn't withdraw and kind of defiantly insisted that he was going to remain in the race. It seems Bell need not worry. Of course, ahead of the report's release, Robinson denied its findings in a video released on his social media accounts. And everyone talks about themselves this way. Those are not the words of Mark Robinson, he added. Clarence Thomas famously once said he was the victim of a high-tech lynching. Well, it looks like Mark Robinson is too. Oh, he's going to go that route. Well, it has worked in the past. All right. Note from Mom, who is in South Carolina, says that it was North Carolina that we were talking about where they were already screwing with the ballots. So I don't know what the difference is and why. I mean, I guess maybe they got a ruling about the federal race, and maybe they decided it may or may not apply to the state race. I don't know. Or nothing has anything to do with anything. And everybody's confused. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm supposed to make sense of this. I'm going to make some legal reasoning, something, and I keep getting distracted. Nude Africa. I can't think. I don't know what's going to happen. Whether evoking corrupt Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his alleged sexual harassment of Anita Hill will work on North Carolina voters remains to be seen. This is only the latest scandal to plague Robinson's political career. He has routinely made misogynistic, homophobic, and generally hate-filled statements. Robinson got national news attention from Fox News, or as a Fox News favorite, willing to endorse just about any far-right conspiracy theory out there, including that former First Lady Michelle Obama is secretly a man, and that singer Beyonce's music is satanic. At a Moms for Liberty event in 2023, those famous non-perverts, Moms for Liberty, he said Americans needed to read more writing and quotations of Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. This seems like a mistake, North Carolina. In 2021, Robinson told the East Carolinian that once a woman was pregnant, it's not her body anymore. That's actually kind of mainstream Republican thought. And during this election cycle, Robinson attempted to soften his viciously anti-abortion stance, even admitting that his wife had had an abortion, while still condemning everyone else that wants the right to consider it. Also in 2021, he dismissed calls for him to resign as lieutenant governor after he characterized the LGBTQ plus community as filth and He followed that up by comparing being gay to, quote, what the cows leave behind. That's interesting that he had to be euphemistic about that one. I think they would have laughed at him at Nude Africa. Anyway, Josh Stein, North Carolina's Democratic gubernatorial nominee, and I guess governor-elect, I don't know, has maintained a solid lead against Robinson in the polls. And on Wednesday, Stein released a statement saying he had no plans to debate the GOP nominee. I wouldn't either. You never know what he's going to say. Mark Robinson has spent his entire public life spewing hate, lying about his record, and spreading dangerous and false conspiracy theories. A debate would only serve to legitimize him and provide a platform for his vile and dangerous rhetoric, and we won't be a part of that. Okay. It's unlikely Stein's position has changed, it is noted here. And that's all right. That's pretty remarkable way of starting the day. And we're not done. Let's see what else is in the recap. Have we? I thought I might be able to depend on the recap for notes on all the rest of the things. Oh, I forgot about this one. Well, I mean, this is kind of old-ish news, but I happened to scroll by. Melania, here's the headline. Melania Trump defends her nude photos in bizarre book promo. I don't know I don't know anything about the book. Did she write a book? And I know she did nude photos. She was a model. I mean, I guess that's not terribly surprising. They were on Nude Slovenia, I guess. Or, is she Slovenian? Or I forget which one she's from. Anyway, wow. Any other things here in the roundup? No. Okay. Well, good. They managed to keep the roundup mostly clean, and I guess it was written Thursday at 5 before we also found out the rest of the news, which I guess I'm now kind of obligated to run through here. Among the other big stories of the night, Olivia Nuzzi, which C is it? I'm not sure, but I don't know. Nude America. All right, Olivia Nuzzi, whose name has come up a couple of times on the show, usually in connection with articles that people are complaining about and panning, turns out to have been covering, well, among the very many things that she's covered terribly, the 2024 presidential campaign for who? I don't know. I don't even know where she writes anymore. Does it say here? It must in this New York Magazine. Well, we'll start with their statement. Recently, our Washington correspondent, Olivia Nuzzi, acknowledged to the magazine's editors that she had engaged in a personal relationship, by which they mean, sexual, with a former subject relevant to the 2024 campaign, by which they mean RFK Jr., while she was reporting on the campaign, which, as far as New York Magazine is concerned, is a violation of the magazine's standards around conflicts of interest and disclosures. Apparently published an article or two relevant to that, including taking the media to task for not treating RFK Jr. as a serious candidate. He isn't. They were doing it right, and she was doing it wrong she was doing it with him anyway. I don't know whether the doing it of it was right or wrong, but ethically doing both, I guess, covering both. And then she also apparently published an article saying that RFK belonged on the debate stage with Trump and Biden, and I guess people are now questioning why she would do such a thing. So how do you like that? What else have we got here? Had the magazine been aware of this relationship, there's more of their statement, she would not have continued to cover the presidential campaign. An internal review of her published work has found no inaccuracies nor evidence of bias. Maybe. She is currently on leave from the magazine, and the magazine is conducting a more thorough third-party review. We regret this violation of our leaders' trust. I'm reading here from the status.news report on the subject. In her own statement provided to Status after this story initially published, Nuzzi confirmed that, quote, earlier this year, the nature of some communication between herself and a former reporting subject turned personal. During that time, I did not directly report on the subject nor use them as a source, Nuzzi added. The relationship was never physical. Oh, I see. I thought the reporting was that it in fact was. But, or maybe it was and she's denying that. I don't know. The relationship was never physical, but should have been disclosed to prevent the appearance of a conflict. I deeply regret not doing so immediately and apologize to those I've disappointed, especially my colleagues at New York. That is the magazine, not the state. She did not proactively disclose her alleged relationship with Kennedy to New York Magazine, and the outlet only recently learned of it. People familiar with the matter told Status the alleged relationship did not begin until after a November 2023 profile, so it's pretty recent, that she wrote on Kennedy had been published. A person close to Nuzzi said. A second person familiar with the matter said the relationship is thought to have started around the new year. A representative for Kennedy, who mounted a third-party bid for president and recently endorsed Trump, told Status after publication of this story that he denied a romantic relationship with Nuzzi. Mr. Kennedy only met Olivia Nuzzi once in his life for an interview she requested, which yielded a hit piece, the spokesperson said. That's not the way it's being discussed online. That's all I can tell you. But this too, not of a tremendous interest to me. I don't really care very much for her or about her. And if I've at all misunderstood or the nature of the relationship, or they're just lying about it, I don't know if I really care. But a lot of people who have good reason not to like her or her reporting have some new ammunition in that war today. Okay, well, we're going to take a 2-minute break, regroup, and drink the anti-venom. Take the anti-venom here, because there's more perverts I have to tell you about. Republican perverts, and a few perverts that could conceivably be viewed as Democratic perverts as well. We have our share. But the weirder ones are Republican, as it turns out. They're quite outrageous. And I'll bring you up to speed, and then we'll turn our thoughts to something, I don't know, it was probably still disgusting. Never mind.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm briefly seeking some more clarity on the Olivia Nuzzi story, if only to find out whether she was being unjustly accused, perhaps, of having a sexual relationship with RFK Jr. or not. I am not sure still, but I do see there are headlines here, although Times of India, I don't know how close they are to the story, but they went with the headline asking who is Olivia Nuzzi, star political journalist who sexted Robert F. Kennedy. Well, that's a slightly different relationship while covering his campaign. I've run into stories from the Times of India before. I think they're maybe a little bit sensationalist, but, okay. That would be a slightly different kind of relationship than simply asking for interviews, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see, there's tabloid news here, New York Post, CNN's story. It doesn't, I don't know if it clarifies in any way. So it may be just that the rumor mill was kind of running away with it. Like, I guess if you're sexting, there's considerably more likelihood of the kind of personal relationship that comes to mind when you usually use the euphemism personal relationship. Anyway, I guess You could find out if you wanted to, but that's just, it's in the mix. It's a lot of what people are talking about today, but there are plenty of other subjects here. Back to an older one, that is to say, one we've known about for longer, but which now has a new news hook and substance to it. Matt Gaetz, noted Republican pervert. This a report from Notus, Notus, Notus.org, a online news magazine publication. New court filings place Matt Gaetz at a party at the center of the sex trafficking scandal. And, well, that's what we've always known about him. That's been the allegation all along. And now this is the first public filing that cites sworn testimony alleging that Gaetz attended one of the long-rumored parties with a teenage girl. And then he went out to get plastic surgery that he thought, I guess, would make him look more youthful so that he could cavort with teenage girls more, I guess. I don't really know what the goal was here. Jose Pagliari writing this piece for Notice. Representative Matt Gaetz attended a drug-fueled sex party, not the good kind of clean sex party, but the drug-fueled kind, in 2017 with the 17-year-old girl at the center of the alleged sex trafficking scandal, according to legal documents filed to a Florida federal court shortly before midnight Thursday, which cite sealed affidavits from 3 eyewitness testimonies. Well, that's not great for them, but it's great for us. We enjoy it. Terrible, I guess, also for the 17-year-old girl. But there you have it. The minor, who was a junior in high school at the time, arrived in her mother's car. I mean, hopefully borrowed. Hope mom didn't drive her there. Arrived in her mother's car for a July 15th, 2017 party at the home of Chris Dorworth. I guess you got to go look that guy up now. He's a lobbyist and a friend of Gaetz's, according to a court filing written by defense attorneys who interviewed witnesses as part of an ongoing civil lawsuit Dorworth brought in 2023. He's suing people? Okay. The lobbyist claimed he had been unfairly dragged into the alleged sex trafficking scandal that has dogged Gaetz and his allies for years. Dorworth ultimately dropped the case, but lawyers filed these documents in an attempt to recoup attorney's fees for a lawsuit they say should never have been brought. And that's something. I mean, boy, they're like jeopardizing their client Gaetz in pursuit of attorney's fees that they wanted to wring out of Dorworth. That's some bad advocacy. One eyewitness cited in the court filings, a young woman referred to as KM, provided a sworn affidavit that claimed the teenage girl was naked, not like nude Africa, but Florida. The girl was naked. Partygoers were there to engage in sexual activities, and alcohol, cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana. Oh my goodness! I can't believe there was marijuana present. Oh, alcohol too, right? And well, quite honestly, these other ones are pretty routine as it turns at sex parties, I guess. I don't know. I guess once you're having a sex party, you might as well have alcohol, cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana. It's just that there's an ellipsis here, and I'm wondering what's left out. I mean, cocaine, alcohol, cocaine, ecstasy, ellipsis, and marijuana. They came back for the marijuana, but they left something else out, and I'm curious what it was. Yeah, red licorice. Oh, no. Well, don't put it in. It's not relevant. Well, why did you say it? I don't know what came over me. Well, anyway, the teenage girl was identified in the filings only as AB. The discovery taken in this case to date reflects that on Saturday, July 15th, well, Saturday night, who can blame them? Saturday, July 15th, 2017, Dorworth hosted a party at his residence. Guess he brought or asked people to bring lots of alcohol, cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana. With the following guests present. I'm sorry. Did I say pervert president? I was thinking a lot about Trump. Who was present? 1, AB, the minor in question. 2, KM, presumably a minor herself, but the eyewitness here. 3, BG, Not the Bee Gees, but someone else known only by initials. And 4, we could say MG, but it's Matt Gaetz. They just put his name in there. So initials, Matt Gaetz. The lawyers wrote in the filing. Also listing several others. No ellipsis here, but okay, there's more. The defense lawyers filed testimonies from those 3 women, I guess those are the initials, who the attorneys say placed Gaetz at Dorworth's house that night under seal pending a judge's approval to make the records public. And it's Eileen Cannon, so it's never coming out. I don't know. Additionally, Gaetz's own ex-girlfriend, who was present at the party, provided testimony that lawyers say rebuts Dorworth's claims that he was not there. Dorworth's claimed that Dorworth was not there or that Gaetz was not there. All right. Notice independently verified that Gaetz and one of the women who testified were previously involved in a relationship. She is only identified in the court filing by her initials. That's BG. So, I don't know. He's got a lot of relationships with a lot of people who have to be identified in court records by their initials. That's never good. The congressman's ex-girlfriend's 11th hour testimony on September 3rd came just 2 days before Dorworth dropped his lawsuit, defense attorneys said in the filing. The defense lawyers also relied on Dorworth's geolocated cell phone records. Oh, so maybe it is Dorworth's presence at his own party. That seems easy to establish. Anyway, his own geolocated cell phone records showed that he communicated constantly with the congressman that day. The defense's court filings show a hired digital forensic examiner identified Gaetz's number, which has a Florida Panhandle 850 area code, and texted back and forth 30 times that day, and then called Dorworth twice in the hours before the evening revelry. BG, another attendee at that party, confirmed AB's testimony under penalty of perjury, defense lawyers wrote. This marks the first time that sworn testimony has been referenced in public court filings alleging that the congressman attended one of the long-rumored parties tied to an alleged underage sex scandal. Previous reports have revealed details of ex-politician and Gaetz friend Joel Greenberg's confession letter. We all remember Joel Greenberg. He was the tax assessor there or something like that, who was doing all sorts of crazy. He was running a crypto thing out of the official office, and he was making fake IDs in there, all kinds of crazy stuff. But Gaetz's friend Joel Greenberg's confession letter referenced here, that was never made public, but which described how Gaetz would allegedly pay him to arrange several sexual encounters with young women, including a 17-year-old girl. That's all bad, too. Greenberg is serving an 11-year prison sentence for a list of charges, including fraud and sex trafficking with a child. Gaetz, you may recall, is a member of the United States House of Representatives. There have also been reports of Venmo payment transactions that were also never released, showing the congressman paying Greenberg on at least one occasion. In 2021, Gaetz appeared on Tucker Carlson's Fox News show, which he has since lost, and asserted, "The person doesn't exist. I have not had a relationship with a 17-year-old. That is totally false." Gaetz probably lied. Gaetz has denied allegations that he ever had sex with a minor or participated in sex trafficking. The Department of Justice investigated Gaetz and ultimately declined to file criminal charges. That was a big disappointment to all of us, but that's what happened. Gaetz did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Records show that AB, who was born in 1999, cue the Prince music, attended 3 weekly deposition sessions in July and testified in front of lawyers in Boulder, Colorado. Now everybody's going to be running around looking for an AB in Boulder, Colorado. Anheuser-Busch is their actual name, but so you'll be confused. The new details were released in a cache of court filings that were ironically made public as a direct result of the congressman's friend, Dorworth, trying to make this disappear. Oh, that's what I was talking about before. Okay. Well, that makes a certain amount of sense. That's how we thought it was going down. The lawyers looking to get paid and all of this. When DOJ dropped their investigation, Dorworth sued several people, including Greenberg and the woman who claimed she was sex trafficked. He sues her. That's All right. He sues the woman who claimed she was sex trafficked by Gates when she was only 17. Dorworth did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Okay. So that brings you up to date on Matt Gates, sex pervert. And we can turn to other sex perverts who are in the news. Let's see. One is, we'll try and make it a little more even-handed here because we love to be fair and balanced. The New York Times has another one for us that didn't even really make the news roundups, the chatter roundup on social media. I just happened to see something, I don't know, it was listed somewhere else today. Former New York City COVID czar partied while preaching social distancing. So that sounds familiar, right? Other people have gotten in trouble not following the social distancing rules, sometimes with parties, sometimes with other things. But Boris Johnson, people were yelling at Nancy Pelosi for having her hair done, I believe, at one point. Gavin Newsom had a big dinner party somewhere. There's all sorts of people were doing this stuff. I don't really know why they felt compelled to do it. But I guess if you're in politics, you're just one of those gregarious types that needs to be around people anyway. Like, I found the lockdown and pandemic quite enjoyable. It was a great reason not to go to all these things that are sometimes such a pain in the ass. How did this come about? It came from a hidden camera interview or a hidden camera video posted by a conservative podcaster. So, of the James O'Keefe School, I guess here. The interview is of Dr. J.K., middle initial, Varma. I don't know whether he goes by J.K. or just J. Varma, and they're being formal because it's the New York Times. They throw in the middle initial. J. Varma boasts about flouting the public health guidelines that he insisted others follow. So it's a hypocrisy story, yes, but there's more because, you know, like if you say, I just couldn't help it. I'm a gregarious person. There was a birthday party. Somebody I know was having their 50th, 60th, whatever, birthday party, and I felt compelled to go, and it had been so long since we'd seen each other. Something like that. Well, that's not it. This, again, in the New York Times, reported by Sarah Maslin Neer, and we've called that name once or twice before, too. And is that David Neer's, is it sister? There's a relation there that I forget exactly what it is, but that would make the most sense. And I think that we may have pointed that out before. Anyway, the official in charge of New York City's pandemic response participated in sex parties and attended a dance party. A dance party underneath a Wall Street bank during the height of the pandemic, even as he was instructing New Yorkers to stay home and stay away from others to stop the spread of COVID-19. He acknowledged his transgressions on Thursday after being caught on hidden camera boasting about his exploits. And it's weird, caught on hidden camera. Would you like to blab a confession to me, which is totally not on camera? Sure, why not? I don't know why you answer these questions at all. And what's he doing with this person at all? But also, okay, birthday party, family party, political fundraiser, sex parties. By the way, he's at a sex party. Matt Gates is at a sex party. The other one is at Nude Africa. I don't know what. I'm missing out in all of this. I don't understand. I don't believe I've ever been invited to or heard anybody that I know say that they were once at a sex party. Which, I can well imagine that they exist, of course, but it's just, what? And also, in the middle of the pandemic, and, do you need to that badly? I mean, I don't know. He's not a young guy. So, I mean, he's married and, I don't know how old he is. It looks to be in his 40s, 50s or something. It just seems like it's not a, wild hormone-driven teenage sex party, which is mostly like, well, people who are coupled already go off into the darkness, perhaps, but a sex party, are we talking about like a weird, are we talking about an orgy? Was that the point of the party? I don't understand. And also just like, what a perfect excuse to stay home if the interest is sex, but no, it should be public with large groups in the middle of a pandemic. It's just not a good idea. And it wasn't a good idea to begin with. The video of the official, Dr. J.K. Varma, who was City Hall's senior public health advisor under Mayor Bill de Blasio from April 2020 to May of 2021, was posted on Thursday by a conservative podcaster, Steven Crowder. I don't know if I have ever heard that name or not, but probably. The video appears to have been compiled, though, from several recordings in which Dr. Varma is seen at a number of restaurants and cafes chatting with a woman who remains off camera. At various points, he describes a sex party. Why? A sex party that he and his wife held in a hotel, and a dance party that he attended in a space under a bank on Wall Street, joined by more than 200 people. And that I can sort of like, okay, a big fancy party. People think it's cool to do it in secret. Maybe they hold it in the vault of a big Wall Street bank, and the power brokers are there, and we just got to have a party. We just can't take it anymore. We got to let loose. Sex party in a hotel that your wife goes with. I mean, it's nice maybe that you guys decided that that's the way you want to spend your time, but it's a pandemic. Does it really have to be a sex party? And he held it too. Like, I know what I should do as a public official? Sex party. You should totally host one of those. No, you shouldn't. You should say, I'll tell you what, we can continue attending sex parties. I just can't host them while I am in the public eye. But apparently, if he had that kind of self-control, he wouldn't have been out at parties in the middle of a pandemic. Or going on dates or something where he speaks with a mysterious woman and tells her, you know what I used to do? Sex parties. What kind of conversation is this? In a statement, Dr. Varma did not dispute the recording's authenticity, but said they had been spliced, diced, and taken out of context. He said he attended 3 gatherings between August 2020 and June 2021. At the time, public health officials in New York, like those in cities and countries around the world, were frantically seeking to contain the virus and COVID's rising death toll by encouraging people to wear masks and avoid large gatherings. New York City schools were abruptly closed beginning in March of 2020. Indoor dining in restaurants was forbidden. Masking indoors in public spaces was mandatory. I take responsibility for not using the best judgment at the time, Dr. Varma said in his statement. And this is one of the few situations in which it's believable when people say, look, I'm not objecting to the sex party. I don't care. I just don't like the fact that he told everybody that you all have to give up your lives, and he was secretly unable to do so himself. And I'm in agreement, I think, on that one. As an architect of the city's vaccine policies, I'm not going to fight him on a vaccine policy, Dr. Varma regularly appeared with Mr. de Blasio at COVID briefings where he would urge people to mask up and observe social distancing, unless you're coming to my sex party. Dr. Varma, he should have just said that on TV. Then people wouldn't have been shocked at this. Although there's probably no fallout because he's not in public service now. Dr. Varma rose to national prominence for helping put in place the mandatory vaccination rules that prevented the Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving from playing basketball in New York for a time after he refused to get the shot. The revelations about Dr. Varma's pandemic behavior called to mind similar instances of official hypocrisy, including Boris Johnson's lockdown soirees when he was Prime Minister of Britain, and the November 2020 dinner at the French Laundry, attended by Gavin Newsom, governor of California. And they stoked anger among some politicians who have criticized what they say was an unnecessarily heavy-handed response to the pandemic that infringed on individual liberties. Joseph Borelli, the Republican minority leader of the city council, who represents Staten Island, of course, said the revelations undercut the public health measures Dr. Varma had advocated. I recall being treated like a pariah for pointing out the obvious at the time, that so many of our so-called leaders were just making up illogical rules as they went along. There was nothing else to do in the face of an unknown like this, but still, even I couldn't have predicted how full of it they actually were, and I think you have them there. On Thursday, City Councilman Robert Holden, a Democrat who represents a district in Queens, called on Mayor Eric Adams to investigate Dr. Varma's actions and on the city to drop its appeal cases against city workers who sued after being fired for refusing to comply with COVID vaccine mandates. Although it's not, I don't think, directly related. He wasn't going and saying, it's an unvaccinated sex party. He probably thought that the sex party was relatively safe. It wasn't because of the vaccine, but whatever. I mean, it's pretty dumb. But no, I mean, if you refuse, I think he was vaccinated. So I don't know if they really have anything to do with one another, except that they both related to COVID in a way. This was a public health expert for the city. While it was shut down, he was busy having sex parties. And I mean, wow. I mean, first of all, busying yourself with sex parties seems odd. If it's a burden for you, give it up. Mr. Holden wrote in a statement issued by his office, "It's alarming, especially with so many first responders, city workers, and everyday New Yorkers losing their jobs. The video recordings of Dr. Varma appear to have been made during several different social encounters or dates." A spokesman for Dr. Varma, Chris Rufo, would not elaborate on the nature of the meetings. And he said, "I was targeted by an operative for an extremist right-wing organization," true, "determined to malign public health officials and take down the public health system of America," maybe true. Dr. Varma said in his statement, "I stand by my efforts to get New Yorkers vaccinated against COVID-19, and I reject dangerous extremist efforts to undermine the public's confidence in the need for and effectiveness of vaccines." Again, it really doesn't have very much to do with vaccines if you think about it. But if you're just sort of stuck on the nude Africa angle of it, well, yeah, you'll be distracted from thinking about and parsing the subject. Dr. Varma in the video appears to acknowledge the hypocrisy of participating in sex parties, while also insisting that New Yorkers isolate to avoid spreading the virus. "I had to be kind of sneaky about it," Dr. Varma says to an unidentified woman off camera at one point in the heavily edited video. "I was running the entire COVID response for the city," but mostly he was spending his time actually having sex parties. He has written extensively, including for the New York Times in 2022, about the need for masking and vaccines and the importance of adhering to the same sorts of policies that in the video he admits he violated. That's the problem. "Like everyone else, health officials and providers like me wish the epidemic would end," he wrote in the Times, "but instead we must live in a parallel universe in which preventing and managing COVID-19 remains a daily focus when everyone else seems to have moved on." But he had moved on, so bad. Mr. Vlasto, the spokesman, said the Wall Street dance party happened in June of 2021. Shortly after Dr. Varma officially left his position as senior advisor, but during a period in which he was still a part-time consultant at City Hall. Mr. Vlasto did not address the sex party, which Dr. Varma describes in the video as, quote, "just being naked with friends." That is also a weird description. And says took place in August of 2020. That's the height of the mystery about what the F was going on with this thing, and really when you should not have been doing this. He claims in the video to have rented a hotel room with his wife and invited 8 to 10 people. Just friends. Let's all be naked, friends. I can't recall ever saying anything like that, doing anything like that, or even suggesting that someone should. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just out of it, but it seems weird to me. At the time, indoor gatherings of up to 10 people were permitted in New York. But if they invited 10 people and then they were there too, that makes 12. I wonder whether he was trying to sneak in under the wire. Well, we'll have a sex party, but small enough that we don't run afoul of my policy. Mr. Vlasto later clarified that Dr. Varma had participated in a second sex party in November of 2020. So, in case you were wondering, if you're the kind of person who just can't help themselves, how often do you have to have sex parties? And here the answer is August and then to September, October, November, 3 months. So, quarterly, I guess, is the answer. Mr. Crowder, the podcaster, has routinely used hidden cameras and techniques that would be considered ethical breaches in the world of professional journalism, but maybe not so much stacked up next to quarterly sex parties. I don't know. In the spring of 2023, Mr. Crowder himself was the subject of a hidden camera recording, in which he berates and curses at his pregnant wife. They have since announced their divorce. That's sad. But, I don't know what to tell you about that one. I guess you might say, hey, you shouldn't be casting any stones, first, second, third, but you know how it is with people. All right. After his work for the city, Dr. Varma went on to become a professor and a director of the Cornell Center for Pandemic Prevention and Response. This is probably a bad idea. At Weill, maybe Weill, Cornell Medical College. He is now the Executive Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at SIGA, S-I-G-A Technologies, a pharmaceutical company. They might not care. Upon Dr. Varma's departure to the private sector, Mayor de Blasio praised him for his work on tackling the pandemic. Mr. de Blasio did not respond to multiple calls and texts requesting comment on the video. So, man, boy, it's all over the place. Man, boy, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Sex parties. I mean, I guess it's not hard to imagine they'd be awfully popular. People, as it turns out, just as a species, love sex. And I guess they go to special parties for it. That was a part. I feel separate. I'm as like a holdout, and I'm isolated from the rest of my species, I guess, in this. But I don't know. I was under the impression that was, for most people, a more private thing. But maybe not. In fact, there's even more news on that front. Believe it or not, we're not done. Let me see if there's any write-up on this news. But last night it was just stories circulating on social media along with screen grabs. Let's see. Is this... no, let me go over to the news section here. No new news on this one. All right, so we'll keep you in suspense briefly. And we'll save it for the other side, but many of you are already aware of this, and we're considering sharing it with me. And we're waiting for some articles to be written up about it so that I would have a coherent narrative to read you about it. But instead, I'll have to wing it and give you the best report I can from the social media accounts of it. But like I said, back in a minute with one more. We're going to flip back to the Republican side. Republican pervert story, where every accusation is a confession about, somebody who's been in the news quite a lot and who deserves nothing less. So after that, we can move on to news of substance. Although, what can I tell you? It's on everybody's mind. Apparently, everybody just has to get out for sex parties. No wonder it's on everyone's mind. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Thank you, everybody who came over for my 1-minute sex party in the break. Everybody has to go home now. We need quiet on the set. Okay, so there is one more, sex party related story. It doesn't necessarily say it's a party, but it's clearly what was on people's mind. I was just wondering, by the way, with Jay Varma, too, like telling everybody to stay home. Was that just a ploy to make it easier, like lower traffic volume and easier parking at the sex party? Or I'm just sort of curious about how you combine the two. Anyway, this now, we now come to the next contestant in the Sex Party is Right, I guess, game show here. And everybody loves Chris Rufo. Yes, Chris Rufo, also a famous Republican moralist scold, now most recently discussed in terms of his takeover on behalf of Ron DeSantis of the new college in Florida, but apparently a big moral scold all along. It turns out, according to one Lauren Windsor on Twitter, do I know Lauren Windsor? I don't know. Who has reported, she begins by saying, asks other prominent conservatives on, and this really gives up the story here because it's about Chris Rufo, and she's asking, are there any other prominent conservatives on Ashley Madison? I may know of one. Ashley Madison, I think, famous as a adult-themed website that I guess specializes in, or it's like is it a dating app of sorts for married people looking to have affairs, not sex parties openly with the spouse participating, I guess, but rather affairs. That's the sneaking around part, I guess. And I don't know whether Varma thought he was getting into that and then was secretly being taped. No one knows why he was talking to this woman about the sex parties, but I assume you only bring up sex parties when speaking with a stranger if you're interested in engaging their reaction to it to see if they might be interested in going to a sex party. But I don't know. Anyway, Lauren goes on to say, update, email address belonging to conservative Chris Rufo was found in an Ashley Madison data dump. So I guess another leak. Didn't they have a leak earlier at some point a couple of years ago of all the data and usernames and, you know, the whole point of the site being the ability to use the online tools for discrete affair meetups. And, you know, obviously you wouldn't want your name to get out, but what are you doing signing up at the I'm sneaking around having an affair website? It just seems like, you know, you're signing up for trouble and all this. Well, anyway, Lauren then pointed out last night that it's possible that someone else registered his email to the site to try to frame him in some way. But I confirmed that the registered email is active and is his. How? She sleuthed it out. She emailed Rufo for comment at that email and he responded. So I guess either he forgot that was the email that he used at Ashley Madison or doesn't care. I don't know. I'm not really sure which one it is. So there you go. Now he's also, you know, one of the very many Republican hypocritical sex pervert type people that about whom we'll gossip. Now, maybe I'll go over to Twitter. I mean, I still have the account there. I try not to add any content there. That's sort of my protest against things. But I do still want to be able to check in to, you know, in order to see these things. And, you know, Greg points a lot of times to things on Twitter that are happening. I want to at least see what's going on, even though I guess that's still contributing to the site by generating traffic. I don't know. So, let's see. Lauren Windsor is like L.A. Windsor on there. So let's look and see if I can find this thread firsthand instead of having this screenshot over at Blue Sky. There she is. Where are we here? Okay, in her profile and scrolling back to see whether... Oh, well, here's her talking about the Matt Gaetz thing. Okay. Oh, and Jose Pagliari on Twitter speaking about the about the story on Matt Gaetz. Okay. And Lauren Windsor just saying, hey, this news day ain't over, folks. People are really taken aback by the number of people who had these things happen to or came out about them on a single day. What have we here? Let's see. Lauren is retweeting Jim Stewartson, who writes, in a night of bizarre news, we should celebrate the wins like bigoted prick Chris Rufo getting found in the Ashley Madison database by Lauren Windsor. Here he is just getting started on the CRT panic that he invented out of nothing, but his sterling personality. And here, a clip of him talking up his big project to demonize CRT. What have we here? Let's see. Then we have a quote here from Lauren asking Pesach Latin about his reporting on the Chris Rufo thing or his contribution to the discussion. Chris Rufo said his 8-year-old girl signed up for Ashley Madison using his credit card and email. Is blaming it on her? Wow. Parenting level expert. First of all, I just found out who Chris Rufo is, says Pesach here, and let's be real, he probably cares as much about me as his credit scores. Secondly, respect for tossing your kid under the bus. Either you've got a mini MacGyver on your hands, or you're deflecting harder than any politician at a press conference. Either way, sounds like your next family talk should be about boundaries and therapy. And Lauren saying, LOL, where did Rufo say this? Is there an answer in that thread? I'm just sort of curious. And then, of course, let's see. Lauren was blocked on Twitter by Rufo, so she can't go that way. Not really certain where that... there's no answer in this thread about where that came from. But there's an awful lot. There's also the report that, as it says here, just like Melania, Chris Rufo's wife was in the United States illegally. Apparently she had self-reported as an undocumented immigrant at some point. That didn't disturb Chris Rufo very much, but maybe when he was so angry when he found out that he went on Ashley Madison to look for an affair. Okay. Here's another report here from Wajahat Ali saying Rufo is married to a formerly undocumented person. His email is on the Ashley Madison website. Ditto Black Nazi Mark Robinson. Both men are conservative cultural warriors who wanted to destroy woke and bemoan liberal godless values. Nuzzi and RFK Jr. Ugh, what a day. Okay. Yeah. In honor of learning, says Swan Marcus, in honor of learning that he had an Ashley Madison account in order to cheat on his illegal immigrant wife, I would also like to let everyone know that Christopher Rufo retweeted a lying Nazi's quote tweet of me the other day in which he referred to black people as sons of Ham. So, okay. Yeah, Chris Rufo, not a particularly upstanding figure either. And, well, there you have it. So everybody just can't help themselves, as it turns out. And what can I, not much to add to that, I guess. But I do think that there's something to it, and that's why it happens so frequently to Republicans. I think there's an extra excitement factor in thumbing their nose at everybody, and it drives them to do this. And if you just don't really care that much about, I don't know what, putting the screws to other people, I don't know, seems a little healthier, and maybe your life is a little bit less of a mess, but I can't psychoanalyze you from a distance. All I wanted to tell you that is the Republicans are a bunch of perverts, and there seems to be no end to the supply of these stories. All right. Time now for some other stuff. We definitely want to take a look elsewhere. Let's see. What else have we put aside? Is there anything? And there may accidentally turn out to be more sex party related stuff that we end up on. Oh yes, right. One additional summary of the situation. That is of Chris Rufo's situation. Seth Kotler, summing it up this way, along with more Lauren Windsor screenshots. Let's see. So in the past few days, we've learned that A, Chris Rufo's wife self-identified as an illegal immigrant in 2018, and B, that Rufo, the great moral defender of Western civilization against satanic wokeness, signed up for Ashley Madison after he and his wife had their first child together. And again, that kid apparently grew up to be, well, a precocious 8-year-old who stole his credit card and signed up for Ashley Madison at some point, reasons unknown. That would be one of the more remarkable deflections I've ever seen, if that's true. But I didn't see anyone pointing out where that actually happened. I wonder if let me go back to the Lauren Windsor thread and see where's that one of her laughing and asking. Maybe I can go to the account of Pesach Latin, Lattin, and see whether he has any sort of information about that, or whether he develops it at any point. Let's see. I mean, would it be in his posts or his replies? I don't know. I can't find any more news about it, but I might not be trying my hardest to get this news. I am just sort of curious. All right. Oh, well, let's see. Here's that tweet. Let's see what it generates. He blames it on his 8-year-old, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of replies, but I guess I can't see them. I'm not certain why that would be the case. But at any rate, it doesn't look like there's any follow-up to it. Oh, no, there's not a lot of replies. There's a lot of retweets, but that's about it. I don't know. There's also, let's see, another thing from Lauren Windsor is quoted here in Pesach Latin's thread here. And I should go back to this. Where is it? Because this looks like it's part of a thread from Lauren Windsor. And we'll go back to that. Update, email address belonging to Chris Rufo, found in Ashley Madison, right? Possible that someone else registered. We read these two. But she emailed him at that email and he responded. And then, let's see. The third email in this, or third post in this chain is, by the way, the super secret email is chrisrufo@gmail.com. Okay? And it, was it connected? Apparently it was. For the context of the timeline on the account, it says that in 2018, Rufo described having an, quote, 8-year-old son with his wife, Suparta, Supharta, or perhaps Suparta. Maybe it isn't pronounced with the PH as F. The couple married in July of 2016. An analysis of the 2015 Ashley Madison leak shows that someone using Chris Rufo's account created an account on Ashley Madison in 2014. If he wasn't married, I don't think that was the right site for him, but hey, maybe it's better and more fun than Nude Africa. I don't know. For someone who spends a great deal of time moralizing over the activities of other people and denigrating others for their sexual preferences, Rufo appears to have had no qualms about attempting to fool around on the mother of his children. But, let's see. 2018, 8-year-old son with his wife, couple married in 2016. But if he has an 8-year-old son in 2018, that means that the son was born in 2010. And then in 2014, he shows up on Ashley Madison, even though they're not married until 2016. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know what this screen grab is from. Does she even say anything about it? It's not linked. But what can I tell you? Next up, okay, now she's asking for contributions to support her reporting. She says she wrote to Rufo on the registered address, but he responded from an email address tied to his website. I'm not sharing that one. I'm only sharing the former one to provide proof linking the Ashley Madison research to his response. Wow. What can I tell you? I don't know. What else do you really need to know? All right, I said we would move on. There is other news, but I was just sort of checking. All right, I'm clicking on all the things in Pocket. Some of them are hidden behind mystery tiles because they came from social media and don't display the headline. But I think we've got all of those things finished with now. And we can move on to a couple of other things. Oh, here's one more from Blue Sky. Let me check in on this one. Yes. Let's double back on this one. I got a hold of the text of the Josh Marshall piece about his sort of whispering to us that maybe the presidential race wouldn't be so close after all. And I got it, and I emailed it to myself so I could share the full text of the article with you, along with the link. I just gave you the link yesterday, and if you don't have a subscription, well, maybe you're dying to know what Josh Marshall had to say about this stuff. Remember, this was the one that began with Stuart Rothenberg, who he reminds you is one of those old school election watcher / analyst types from the pre-poll aggregator, pre-538 era. You know, back when it was only him and Charlie Cook and maybe Larry Sabato doing this stuff. Well, his new column, which appeared in Roll Call, caught Josh Marshall's eye. The gist is simple enough. While he's not predicting this outcome, Rothenberg says we shouldn't be surprised if the 2024 presidential election actually turns out not to be all that close, despite the fact that a photo finish is the one thing everyone on every side of the race seems to agree on, at least publicly, I guess we'll say. Who knows what they tell people on Nude Africa or Ashley Madison. He points to new high-quality polls out of Pennsylvania and Iowa, which suggests that the race may not be quite as close as we all universally assume. And Rothenberg is not the type that you generally expect to predict or hint at something like this. As Rothenberg puts it, after detailing this universal consensus, if you are something of a gambler and everyone you know believes the 2024 presidential contest is and will remain extremely close, you should put a few dollars on the possibility that November will produce a clear and convincing win for Harris, right? Go the different direction from everyone in a crowd. If you are like the COVID czar and you tell everybody that you should stay home and social distance, you'll want to put, if you're a gambler, a few dollars on instead having sex parties at hotels. And guess what? It pays off as a bet. Now, back to the article here. As you can see, even Rothenberg is only willing to point to this possibility in an oblique sort of way. This is the part we didn't get to, I think. There's a kind of extreme taboo among Democrats, for some pretty good reasons, around discussing the upside possibilities and the inherent unknowns of a presidential race, especially this one. But since I'm discussing this with TPM readers, I am confident that I can note the possibilities, these various data markers, without you thinking, well, in that case, I don't need to worry about voting myself, and I'm going to bag on that phone banking I was planning on doing each week through November, so don't worry. I'm not going to offend the gods. We'll just keep this between us. And the rest of it obviously should be read in a whisper, right? Yesterday, a family member asked me, I can't do it, I can't keep it up, but how accurate are the polls really? I told him that within broad parameters, they are highly accurate. The challenge is that when you get into close margins, say 3 or 4 percentage points, you're down to margins where the results rely on a lot of assumptions that pollsters have to make about turnout and the shape of the overall electorate. And those assumptions, while educated assumptions, can be wrong. Greg has walked us through this in the past. Then we have to add in the fact that the polls have twice underestimated Trump. And by the way, not only has Greg walked us through this, but we've had Armando critique this bitterly a number of times, and it's correct. But yeah, there's very little else you can do but make some kinds of assumptions. Armando just generally, I guess, disagrees with the kind of assumptions that they usually make. Anyway, where were we on this? Okay, so all right, these assumptions can, of course, be wrong. And then there was the fact that the polls have twice underestimated Trump. I've explained in other posts why I think there are good reasons to doubt that that will happen again, or rather, that it's not more likely than the polls underestimating Harris. But it did happen twice. It's hard to forget that. And it's in part because of that everyone from pollsters to nervous political observers are systematically discounting a number of signs that the Harris campaign may be in a stronger position than people realize. As we've discussed in other posts over the last 6 weeks, and even going back to Biden's candidacy, there are many reasons to think that Democrats have a significant enthusiasm and turnout edge.
Enthusiasm.
Right, that's the kind of edge we're talking about, over Republicans in this cycle. Enough, Mr. De Niro. Harris also continues to reconsolidate the traditional Democratic constituencies that made up Biden's 2020 coalition. And he won. I don't know if you're aware of that. Factors like this suggest either polls or at least conventional wisdom may be underestimating Harris's strength. Then there are other factors that Rothenberg points to that are about the trajectory of the race going forward. Harris is a dynamic campaigner. She trounced Trump in the first and perhaps only debate between the two. She's likely to have a final advantage in the last 2 months of the campaign. There's the simple reality that voters like her much more than Trump, a general prism through which voters will see the various unpredictable events of the final 50 days of the campaign. It's only a small numerical difference since we discussed this last time, but yesterday, a couple days ago I guess now, Harris finally moved into net positive favorability, albeit by the tiniest of margins, for the first time since mid-2021. There is also the simple trend line of the poll aggregates themselves. As I write this post, Harris seems to be, again, building up her national lead. Probably a bump of some sort from the debate and subsequent press coverage about it. There was a lot of nervousness just before the debate when Harris's lead seemed to be slipping. But we're now almost 2 months into Harris's candidacy, and the big picture is one of stability. Harris almost instantly erased Biden's deficit. Her margin then increased to 3 or 4 points nationally, and it's mostly stayed there. A touch of undulation here and there, but not much. On the other side of the ledger, or balancing out these data points, we see the recurring pattern of interpreting Trump's every bib and bob, every rake stomp, not as a self-inflicted wound, but as uncanny smarts in which more conventional thinkers aren't able to fathom. There's a stray in there, but okay. It's not, I put it in there for some reason. Okay, so anyway, is he a super genius or not? No, he's not. We've spent the last week watching JD and Trump's claims about Fido and Felix barbecues fall apart. The Trump campaign responds that, yes, their lies are falling apart and offending normal people, but every day the campaign is about immigration. Every day that it is about immigration is a win for them, they argue. And they might be right, but maybe not. Maybe it's a campaign that's losing, trying to find an angle, but floundering again and again. I know that they think that immigration is a winner for them, but they are weirdos and losers, and I don't know if they can really formulate a point that doesn't also reflect the weirdness. That's what I would say about this. All right, his final paragraph here. My point, Josh says, isn't that we should be confident of a Harris victory or that a decisive win, which Rothenberg believes is possible, is the likely outcome. It's a bit different than that. It's that there are a number of data points which are consistent with those outcomes, which, for a variety of reasons, some good, others less so, we're deciding not to look at. It is probably best not to look at them too closely because Trump winning is a very real possibility and the consequences of such a catastrophe are profound. It's good to feel like you're running as the underdog because it makes you hungry and smart rather than trying defensively to sit on a lead. As long as it doesn't get to the point of demoralization, it's good to assume you're behind because you might be. But we should retain in the back of our minds that there are real reasons to think it won't actually be all that close. So it would be nice. I hope it happens that way. And he's just putting down a marker so that if it does happen, that it's, actually quite a blowout and a landslide, he can say, see, your analysts here did in fact see this coming. We just dared not say so too loudly. So, all right, I think that was a very real interest. And also, let's catch up on what we have from Jeremy Freiberger, because the last couple of days have been very busy, and I didn't get to read a bunch of his things, and now he's started a whole new thread, and I've lost track of how many days behind we are. Plus, I'm now reading things that said, my prior email needed correction. I hope you read this before you read the old one aloud. And I don't know whether it's wise to continue going in chronological order. And I should open up maybe the new thread and just see. All right. That's okay. And we can add the new thread later. And let's go to Jeremy's previous email thread here. All right, let's see. I got to get to that. Find his previous one and read on from there. Okay. I think I've got it correct here. So where did I mark this one? I can't see whether we did. Is this going to where we did mark it or not? I think so. All right, let's see. No, that's an old one. All right, why is this not as easy to find as I thought it would be? I have to flip back. See, these emails are getting old, and they're no longer sitting on my front page of... here we go. All right, there we are. I think we can jump in here. We said we marked this one as the last one going. No, this isn't it either. All right. Why is this happening this way? What's today's date? Okay, there we are. I think I've got it here. Or maybe this one was very old. We did this one before. We finished the state updates. Oh my gosh, and I've gotten to the last break. All right, well, this at least gives me 2 minutes to figure out exactly where we stand in the Jeremy Freiberger saga. I don't know. I maybe did it in the most inefficient possible way and simply marking as unread from the point that I hadn't gone. I thought that was going to be very efficient, but in fact, it is not. All right, but we had finished going through the various state updates, and we're talking about, or he was thanking us for clarifying the DNC's role, and then we had the DLCC plug. And did we read that one? Yes, and that was the one where he was remarking on the number of states or the number of seats in the top 5 states on the DLCC's list being rather surprising. And I think there's some update to that news, and well, hell, we're way behind on all these things. We'll read it up and then perhaps do one of our long read things that we've been saving for a while to get you up to date for the weekend. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And now time for the Jeremy Freiberger Show. We got a lot to catch up on. Maybe we should all just do it all in one fell swoop, but we'll see how quickly it moves. I believe the last thing we read through was his DLCC piece, which has been updated and revised along the way, and we'll get to those revisions. But we'll begin here. Like I said, we're a little bit behind here. This is from September 11th, in which he makes a couple of commentaries on observations on the recent shows, comparisons of the Heritage Foundation to Project Veritas, now that Heritage Foundation is doing its own undercover sting video operations, is further evidence, not proof, as he points out, supporting my belief that conservatism and its GOP are in terminal decline. How long that decline will continue and how much damage it will exact, however, is an open debate. Something you said earlier this week, which would be now 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe made me consider the GOP's Senate and governor nominees during the past several cycles and how most of them haven't risen through the elected office ranks or any other governmental experience. And that's true. It's obviously not unique to the Republican Party, but the Republican Party places a high value on, well, they're the ones that always are constantly saying, we need a businessman in office, and so they'll pluck business people out of their conventional lives and drop them into the middle of a congressional race with a candidate in a box kit, or other weird non-traditional backgrounds that make them famous, like he begins with Tommy Tuberville in Alabama, and then even Katie Britt, also, sort of plucked out of the business world instead. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, she has a familial governmental background. But Blake Masters and Carrie Lake in Arizona. Larry Elder in California. Joe O'Dea, the Senate candidate, and Heidi Ganal, is that right? Gubernatorial candidate in Colorado. I've heard nothing about her, but okay. Over in Connecticut, Bob Stefanowski running for governor, also with no government experience. Tim Scott had never had it either. Herschel Walker, Kelly Loeffler, Eric Holcomb in Indiana, Rand Paul in Kentucky. No, I mean, again, familial like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but none himself. Susan Collins, I guess. Is that right? I mean, she's been in government for quite a long time, of course. Too long, some might say, but what was she doing beforehand? I don't know. Royce White in Minnesota, Eric Greitens, how does he pronounce it? Pervert, I think is how it's pronounced, in Missouri. But again, you know, like big biography. Oh, no, Navy SEAL, let's make him the governor. Well, no, sex pervert, let's not. Tim Sheehy in Montana, Jim Pillen in Nebraska, Doug Burgum in North Dakota, governor there, made into a big surrogate by Donald Trump. From where did he come from? Sam Brown in Nevada, you know, public speaker, military background, but no governmental background. In Ohio, of course, J.D. Vance, nothing behind that resume, and Bernie Moreno, no better. And in Pennsylvania, recently, Dr. Oz, David McCormick, Bill Hagerty in Tennessee, Ted Cruz before he was elected in Texas, no governmental experience, Mike Lee, same, Glenn Youngkin here in Virginia, Ron Johnson and Eric Hovde in Wisconsin. That's a very familiar formula for them. So, good list, good thinking. Although I haven't listened, he said, to today's podcast, and eventually got around to it, I'm sure. It's been a full week since the 4-day stretch of discussions regarding the divided legislatures. He was just wondering, by the way, what happened? Did we just get distracted? Yes. Now, anyway, time now to turn back to it, and we did a couple of days ago. Let's see. He was, do you want to add something to that? Oh, there were also a couple of inaccuracies that went along the way that made it into the reading, but some of them we figured out along the way, including the confusion about the atypical Minnesota and Michigan State Senate election schedules, New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu having been retired or retiring, I guess. At any rate, regardless, as the letter continues here, just making some notes about things as we go along. If you choose to come back to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, we have, of course, or to that DLCC plug, he lets us know he used the downtime to clean up the last one a bit, the DLCC plug. Now, a revised DLCC plug, the final installment of his state legislatures series, which we already read through, but here's the revised version of it. Let's see. While compiling the info for the now completed 6-state discussion of the closely divided state legislatures, he happened to notice about the DLCC spotlight races. So some updated numbers out of this one. Let's see, predictably, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, 3 of the states reviewed in the 6-state discussion, each have a large number of spotlight races. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but the new updated numbers are, of the 22 states hosting the DLCC's 116 showcased state legislature candidates, Pennsylvania has the most, 19, Michigan in 3rd place with 13, Arizona 4th on the list, hosting 12. The intriguing part, North Carolina being number 2 on the list with 14 candidates, Kansas still number 5, 10 candidates, and this is still the case. 3-way tie for 6th place, 7 races each in Nevada, Georgia, and Iowa. Note that none of these 5 states have closely divided legislatures. North Carolina, of course, discussed on the show recently, and it appears that the DLCC, by highlighting 14 of their races, also feels that Hey, who's relevant to today's news? Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's long-running troubles. All right, so it's timely after all. Might offer an incredible opportunity for North Carolina's down-ballot Dems. Additionally, perhaps the dastardly deeds of North Carolina Republicans during recent years have the DLCC sensing that a GOP comeuppance is brewing. So an excellent reminder, accidental, but excellent reminder, brings that back to the fore. This is the time to strike. The iron is hot. Here's a hammer. Go do it, I would say. Let's see. Going further into the DLCC's list of such contests, though, let's see, leaves me without any explanation for why Kansas and Iowa were spotlighted, right? I think that came up before. Let's see. So I think he then comes back and says that he's got some answers on that. Let me just jump to the next email here because I think a lot of it we read through and it stayed consistent as between the two go-rounds on the DLCC plug. Some additional commentary as well. And by the way, he has also said to me, you don't have to read every single one of these things on the air. But, I don't know. They're all pretty relevant and it's good observation. And I'm hoping that it will also spark similar conversations with other listeners, too, who might just want to get their views on the air or spot something that they want to hear a reaction to. Let's see. There's another letter here. It goes on to say, I'm glad that Hakeem Jeffries is calling for Trump to be given a cognitive exam. Yet, why hasn't the press been screaming for this? Well, who knows why. Meanwhile, because of Trump's nonstop dialed to 11 debate volume and frequent sniffing, why hasn't the press been wondering out loud about stimulants? We certainly have. But different standards for Dems and Goppers, I guess. Several times in recent months, I think you've confused former Congressman and outspoken never-Trumper Joe Walsh, not with the Eagles' Joe Walsh, but with Joe Uli Wilson. And I do remember doing that very recently. By the way, Wilson yesterday had what seems to have been a stroke. This was a letter that came on September 12th. And yeah, I've seen now that that's the case. But yeah, I did confuse the two of them, I think. I don't hold either one of them in high regard, but I do differentiate them now. As you've pointed out, I know which one's which, but yeah, it's hard not to mix them all up. But they're terrible / weird for different reasons. All right. Then on Friday the 13th, the very lucky letter that came in thanking us for the catch-up on, not catch-up on the wall, but the catch-up on yesterday's show, which would have been last Thursday, regarding Pennsylvania's synopsis and the election schedule corrections. It was, at the time, timely now too, I guess, as we've mentioned on the air. The time for contributions making a difference is now of the essence, and even more so now, and that's kind of why I want to get through the balance of these things. I should remind everybody not only that you should be contributing down ballot, but it is true. It seems like the election is still far away, even though you can count it on, in the number of days. They will pass very quickly. That seems like an eternity in politics. But again, time is of the essence. They can make much, much, much better use of your money the earlier you give it. That's just true across the board, no matter where you give it. But they're not expecting it to roll in at the state level. And they are expecting it to roll in at the national level. And it will. But if you want to make a real difference, do it immediately. That's what I can tell you. All right, so where were we with this? Regarding the state Senate election schedules, it turns out that there's so much more to the story. Meanwhile, I, Jeremy, living in Idaho, and Greg in Connecticut, happen to reside in one of only 12 states. How do you like that? Which elect all state legislators every 2 even years. Thus, I very wrongly assumed that all states do it this way. In reality, most states, 38 of them, elect their senators to 4-year terms or terms of 2 for 4 years each decade. 2, 4, 4. Is that right? Okay. Some of these states stagger the 4-year terms by holding elections for half the seats each 2 years, while others hold elections for all their Senate seats simultaneously. It is kind of confusing. Of the latter group, some hold elections that coincide with presidential elections, while most of the rest hold elections during midterm years. And then there are the states that hold state legislative elections in odd-numbered years, only a few of those. Is that crystal clear? Could America make this any less clear? Good question. And, yeah, it's a little wacky and you got to pay some real attention. Sometimes, I mean, the best you can do is just say, I don't know, I pay some attention to the news and they said we're having an election. What's going on? Not that listeners need to know, but okay, well, let's see. FYI, regarding our, I guess listeners will know, regarding our 6-state series on closely divided state legislatures, New Hampshire is the only state that elects all state senators every 2 even years. Michigan, the only state where Senate terms are 4 years long and all such seats are up for election during midterm even years. Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin state senators serve 4-year terms. Half of these seats up for election every 2 even years. Minnesota, the only state with a 2-4-4 Senate election schedule. That was the weird one. And how do you keep track of that? And with election for all seats occurring during years ending in 0, 2, and 6. All right. Well, if you're in Minnesota, yeah, I'm sure it's easier to keep track of. Finally, state house elections across the nation for all of a chamber's representatives generally happen every 2 even years, yet that is not the case in all 50 states. Damn, no wonder so many Americans struggle to vote. If I ever move to a new state, it'll take me a while just to figure out when my state legislators are running. They'll mail you about that and start calling your house and knocking on your door. But anyway, on an unrelated topic, I'm glad you mentioned that clip of Stephen Miller. I was going to point it out to you as perfect proof of concept, proof and concept being 2 frequently cited words during recent shows, for the countering misinformation in debates discussion that occurred earlier in the other day's show. Okay. Beat me to it. Bravo. And everyone should hear that, by the way. And one of these days, maybe we'll just play it on the air. I'll give you that link again, or at least I'll make a note to myself to give you that link again, because it is really remarkable. If you haven't seen it, it's a Venezuelan journalist pressing him on this, I think on the Aurora situation, and just saying, what's your proof of any of this stuff that it actually happened? And he just says, my proof is, don't you care about crime and children are being murdered and how dare you? And he really has nothing. It is an excellent exposition of the subject. Okay, there's more here. First of all, he wishes me hopes I had a good weekend as he comes back to discussing things on September 15th. Meanwhile, guess what? He just got an explanation from the DLCC regarding a significant reason for why a high percentage of its total number of spotlight races are in North Carolina and Kansas, states that do not have closely divided legislatures. These 2 states, as you know, each have a Democratic governor, and in both North Carolina and in Kansas, Republicans in their state legislatures have veto-proof majorities, which the DLCC is working hard to break. Not to be too pushy, let's see. But the updates, information, positive trends, and calls to action embedded in my 6-state series seem to provide some relief to the bottomless supply of stories about awful Republican activity. The never-ending stream of horrible reports can be exhausting, while the positive trends and outlooks from these 6 states can help us Dems feel like we're on offense. And that's why I want to include them, among other reasons. Also, time is definitely growing short for campaign contributions to make a difference. So there you go. Let's see. If you're willing, we'll see what happens here. I'd also like to make a near future plug for state Supreme Court elections. Sure, let's do it. In Arizona, Michigan, and Ohio, all of which could see their top court flip, and you all can appreciate the importance of flipping the courts when it's in your control. If it's within grasp, do it. Nothing could be more important. On a different topic, based on reports of a second assassination attempt against Trump, and remember what Greg was calling it was, what did he say? Just a security breach. Although other people said, no, I think it was Bearded Stoner on Blue Sky saying he should be calling it friendly fire. In light of that, let's see, it appears those who insist on living by the sword should assume that they may die by the sword. I don't know if he's ever heard that proverb. Put another way, political violence appears to be a face-eating leopard. I think everybody's got that feeling. Let's see. What else have we got? Thanks for airing the Wisconsin synopsis. With the 100% regarding accountability for the types of people whose actions have incited violence, such as in Springfield and Merseyside. In that regard, I'm wondering if the posts are akin to inappropriately yelling fire in a crowded theater. A good observation. And the last of the old thread additions here. Let's see. Thanks for bringing a nice conclusion to my series on closely divided state legislatures. If interested, you'll find 2 related comments in my emails from 913, which I think we got to. Now we've done them all in 915. Oh, he's pointing us back to what we may have missed. Let's see. Most of the comments that I email you are just thoughts. This is where he says, you don't have to read them all. Triggered by things said on the show by you, Greg, Joan, Armando, or anybody else on the show. If some of those comments eventually find their way into the show, they have. Fine. Also, fine if they don't. Just connecting the dots. Okay. And now I'm reading this through just to let everybody know. I appreciate those thoughts. I would appreciate yours. Please contribute them to the show. Let's see. What else have we here? One of the other thoughts that he had, sparked by the show, when the possibility, i.e. likelihood per Occam's razor, of an affair between Donald Trump and Laura Loomer was raised. One of the initial images that invaded my brain was from Apocalypse Now. All right. Specifically, the Playboy bunnies who are in Vietnam touring remote bases with the USO. Kind of a how it started, how it's ending story with Trump and Loomer illustrating how it's ending. Oh, okay. Finally, for today, regarding Chase Harrow and the crypto scheme, can we just assume now that any association with Trump is probable cause for investigation? Probably true. We might even skip ahead and call such association grounds for indictment and arrest. After all, there has been no clearer indication of criminality. All right, now we've got to the end of the old thread, and just to see if we can't catch up on the new one. Why is it not as easy for me to spot as I was hoping? No answer. Here we are, the new thread. All right, let's see. Filing away the old one, starting a fresh one. After completing a listen of yesterday, that would be Wednesday's show, I'll specifically comment on your review of the Haitian guy who emigrated to Florida and then found his way to Springfield, Ohio. You are absolutely correct, yay, in highlighting this story as the quintessential American dream, and you and Balco rightly pointed out many of the positive contributions that immigrants have long provided to communities just like Springfield. Also of note, the fact that the Haitian guy's story is Exhibit A for free markets in the private sector, a so-called core principle that conservatism and its GOP purport to champion. The right isn't satisfied even when given exactly what it's asked for. That's right, another group of people who can't take yes for an answer. That raises the question, can conservatism's inherent insecurity ever be placated? Well, right-wing goon Elon Musk, allegedly the world's wealthiest person, shows no sign of ditching his insecurities, nor do plenty of other conservative billionaires. Also another good observation. And now we are up to date with Jeremy, and that's good news, and that'll give me a chance to preview things a little easier and make sure I'm not missing anything. When I let the volume get too high of backlog, and I just said, let's just race through it and get it all on the record. And I probably, I could edit next time. I don't know. Maybe it's even kind of embarrassing to have your every thought read out on the program. I don't know. Hope I didn't cause you any trouble. There's certainly nothing there to be worried about as far as I can see. And again, it's meant to encourage the rest of you to share your thoughts as well. Although I guess I probably at some point will say, oh yeah, I should do some of this show. All right. Got to get you caught up on at least one or two more things, and I think we've got the time to do it. Something from The Guardian that I pocketed and then saw it start to get a little more discussion online, so let's bring it to your attention. It's important. The Guardian's headline from date, where do they put it? Oh, yes, the 18th, Wednesday. Network of Georgia election officials strategizing to undermine the 2024 result. Now, this should come as no surprise to you. We've kept you more or less up to date on what's going on, but it's a good reminder that in Georgia, even headed by apparently principled Republican Brad Raffensperger and his many allies. Even Governor Brian Kemp actually has more or less seemed, at least publicly facing, been an ally in true election integrity and not knuckling under to Trump. But what's going on beneath them? And you might wonder, how are they letting it happen? Although, again, Raffensperger gave us some indication that he really wasn't. He was actually pushing back on this and suing and pursuing legal remedies, asking his legal counsel how much power he had to oust local level elections officials who seem to be, well, the kind of people involved in this story, plotting, strategizing, as it says in the headline, to undermine the 2024 result. Emails reveal Georgia Election Integrity Coalition. You'll probably recognize that name once we get to reminding you who they are. A group of officials and election deniers coordinating in a swing state. The Election Integrity Coalition is Cleta Mitchell's effort. And remember, Cleta Mitchell and Brett Raffensperger, both involved in that infamous phone call. Here's the deal. Emails obtained by The Guardian, and here the reporter is Justin Glawe, Glawe, not certain about the pronunciation. But Justin, thank you very much. Sorry if we mispronounced your last name. Emails obtained by The Guardian, meaning you, reveal a behind-the-scenes network of county election officials throughout Georgia coordinating on policy and messaging to both call the results of November's election into question before a single vote is cast and push rules and procedures favored by the election denial movement. The emails were obtained by the watchdog group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. That's CREW. As a result of a public records request sent to David Hancock, an election denier and member of the Gwinnett County Board of Elections. CREW shared the emails with The Guardian. Spanning a period beginning in January, the communications expose the inner workings of a group that includes some of the most ardent supporters of the former president, Donald Trump's election lies, as well as ongoing efforts to portray the coming election as beset with fraud. That was always the plan, of course. Included in the communications are agendas for meetings and efforts to coordinate on policies and messaging as the swing state has once again become a focal point of the presidential campaign. The communications include correspondence from a who's who of Georgia election denialists, including officials with ties to prominent national groups such as the Tea Party Patriots, are they still prominent? And the Election Integrity Network, a group run by Cleta Mitchell, a former attorney. Is that right? Was she disbarred? I don't know. A former attorney who acted as an informal advisor to the Trump White House during its attempts to overturn the 2020 election. I'm not sure why she's described as a former attorney of Trump's, possibly. I think she was one of the most careful in how she parsed her language so that she didn't get disbarred, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Look that up. Let me know what you think. The group, which includes elections officials from at least 5 counties, calls itself the Georgia Election Integrity Coalition. Now, okay, so I see. So that's a larger umbrella group, not entirely run by Cleta Mitchell. Her thing is the Election Integrity Network, and the Election Integrity Network is part of the group, including the Tea Party Patriots and some others who now work under the umbrella of the Georgia Election Integrity Coalition. But the fact that it, adopted the election integrity language should tell you something about who's running things, too. Among the oldest emails released are those regarding a January 30th article published by the United Tea Party of Georgia. That's a thing. Headlined, Georgia Democratic Party Threatens Georgia Election Officials. Every accusation is a confession, of course. The article was posted by an unnamed admin of the website and came in response to letters sent to county election officials throughout Georgia who had recently refused to certify election results. Remember these dry runs that they've had in the past? In what can only be seen as an attempt to intimidate elections officials, the article began, the Georgia Democratic Party sent out a letter to individual county boards of election members threatening legal action unless they vote to certify upcoming elections, even if the board member has legitimate concerns about the results. And you'll see how each side comes to view this stuff as we've read in the past, right? They're just saying, well, we're now allowed to say, well, I don't know, we have doubts. And because we have doubts, they're legitimate doubts. Whereas the Democrats are saying, no, this is a ministerial function. You will be sued if you try to get away with this. The letter had been sent by a lawyer representing the Democratic Party of Georgia to county election board members in Spalding, Cobb, and DeKalb counties. Election board members in each of those counties had refused to certify the results of local elections the previous November. In their letter, Democrats sought to warn those officials that their duty to certify results was not discretionary in an attempt to prevent further certification refusals, including in the coming presidential election. In response, the United Tea Party of Georgia took issue with the letter, calling it troubling, and saying that it was Orwellian to demand that election officials do their job. That is, they say, certify an election even if they have unanswered questions about the vote. But the time for asking and answering those questions comes well before certification. That's the problem with their argument. While the author of the article is not named on the United Tea Party of Georgia's website, the emails obtained by Crew show that it was Hancock, an outspoken election denier and member of the Gwinnett County Board of Elections, who has become a leading voice in the push for more power to refuse to certify results. All right, I finished the article and posted it, Hancock wrote in an email the same day that he published the article. So that would appear to have given up the game. Late in getting out the door, but it's Friday. Wanted to get all of this stuff in there. Anything else we can? I don't know. It's a longer article than I thought, but not huge. Something you could probably finish up in the next 5 minutes if you were interested in looking at it. Receiving that email, by the way, are a handful of county elections officials who have expressed belief in Donald Trump's false claims about the 2020 election and have continued to implement policies and push for rules based on the belief that there was widespread election fraud, which there was not. They include Michael Heekin, a Republican member of the Fulton County Board of Elections who refused to certify results this year, his colleague Julie Adams, who has twice refused to certify results this year and works for the prominent national election denier groups Tea Party Patriots and the Election Integrity Network. And Debbie Fisher of Cobb County, Nancy Jester, that's appropriate, of DeKalb County, Roy McLean of Spalding County, all of whom refused to certify results last November, who received the letter that Hancock took issue with. By February 4th, Hancock apparently hadn't received much feedback from his article and again shared it with the group. All right, so they're not getting enough pushback. Well, it's perhaps up to us, in part, to provide that pushback. Just wanted to let you know that they were still plotting to pull the same trick, even though we all see it coming. There seems to be no way of dissuading them from this nonsense. We're going to have to figure something out. Or at least be ready for it.
Listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
Well, as usual, there was much more that we didn't get to, but we had to spend the time on the brain cleansing or brain infecting news of today. Now we can go and cleanse it from the rest of the day. As a matter of fact, why not stay tuned for Justice Putnam's West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? I think he'll give you something maybe a little bit more fun to enter the weekend with. We'll see you next week.